Hey guys, it's Lisa with LisaListen.com and the blog Are You My Cousin? I want to welcome you to our Facebook Live. It's so good to join you again for a Facebook Live. I've been under the weather the last couple of weeks, didn't, excuse me, have much of a voice to be able to talk with you. So I'm happy to be back. I will have to tell you, ignore the coughs that come up. I still have a little bit of that tickle left in that cough, but actually I'm feeling just fine and really glad to be back talking with you guys today. So today, what I want to talk with you about is finding those old family photos or locating old family photos. We talked about this actually recently in a Facebook Live with Melissa Barker, the archive lady. We touched on this, but I had some thoughts that I really wanted to actually bring back up to you guys again and maybe talk a little bit more on. So I thought I would have this Facebook Live in conjunction with a post that I recently wrote on the blog post or on a blog post I wrote on the website. So I wanted to talk with you guys, share some thoughts on that, and love to hear what you guys have to think about it as well. If this is your first time joining me for a Facebook Live, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. I do monitor those as we go along. And if you have a question that comes up, feel free to ask it. If I don't answer it right away, maybe write it again and it'll pop it back up to the feed. Since I'm the only one here doing it, it takes me sometimes the feed will get away from me on the side. I do try to keep up with that, but just ask again if I miss yours, and I'll just apologize in advance for that. If you are here, if you don't mind giving me a thumbs up or just a little hello so that I know that you guys are seeing me and can hear me fine, that would be great. I do have a new software that I'm using for these Facebook Lives, so I might be learning a little bit of that as we go along together. So welcome, glad you're here. Oh, thank you guys for letting me know you're here. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about old family photographs. I love old family photographs. I had no idea when I started genealogy research that I would become the family historian or the family curator of the family photographs that are in that had been stored literally in barns, in attics, the whole bit. And when people started realizing that I was interested in genealogy, they decided it was time to clean out their closets. And as a result, I received many, many old photographs from the family that people just didn't know what to do with anymore. Some they knew, some they didn't, but they didn't know what to do, just didn't want to throw them out. So I'm very thankful they didn't throw them out and that they came my way. So that's an interesting way of kind of segueing into probably the first way I would tell you to look for old family photographs is to ask your family. Okay, now guys, I can see, don't roll your eyes just yet on this one. Not just your immediate family, because a lot of times some families just didn't keep photographs. But what I want you to do is to think outside the box here. Maybe your family didn't keep photographs. Maybe you are the oldest generation in the family and didn't get any of the photographs. Okay, I understand that. But you've got options. What about distant relatives? What about those older cousins? What about those family members that, yeah, mom and dad always said we were related to that group of whoever on the other side. They have the same last name, but I don't really know how we're related. Reach out to them because very likely you are related somehow. Maybe you haven't figured it out yet, but reach out to them. We discovered and researched that my great-great-grandfather's brother lived 10 miles away from them. Not that far in today's term, but 10 miles was quite a ways. So when my dad was a little boy growing up, he said, oh, I always heard about the Talbots over in that part of the county, but I had no idea that we were actually related to them. Do you want to know how many family photos of my family they had in their collections? A lot. So reach out to those other collateral families. Maybe you don't know the families, but try reaching out to other researchers who are researching the same line. That's a simple thing to do. Honest, guys, I forgot, and I didn't do that early on, and I've kind of gone back to do that a little bit. It's where I will reach out to other researchers and say, hey, what kind of family photos do you have? Do you have any you don't recognize? Can I see them? Would you share them with me? Because maybe they have photographs. They don't recognize them, but they could very well be part of your family. So and you would perhaps recognize them. So that's an actual way to also try to find some family photos. But here is a really fantastic tip that the archive lady told me. And I thought this was a wonderful thing. I never thought to do this. So do you know how if you actually either inherited a photograph or maybe an older family member gave you a framed photograph of an older family member? You know how if you're cleaning out a relative's house and you come across those old framed photos? Look behind the photograph. In other words, take the frame apart if it's that kind that you can take out. Oftentimes you just slide the back off of it and see what other photos might be tucked in behind the one that's being displayed. I never thought about doing that. But Melissa had told me that you can find a lot of photographs that way that you might not have thought to look for. And it makes sense. I've done the same thing. You know how the kids come home and they have the school photograph and you put it in a frame? And then the next year they come home with a photograph? Well, I'm quite honestly, I usually just stick the new one on top, the old one behind it, and put the frame back together. Well, after a while, you can end up with quite a few pictures that way, all stacked behind one. So check out those old family frames that come your way. I thought that was a great idea. Hey, Philip. Oh, from Burke County, North Carolina, another North Carolinian. For those of you who don't know, in North Carolina, we are enjoying some very warm and 70-degree days here after all the cold weather. So we're quite enjoying our southern weather these days. Okay, so another place that I want to encourage you to go and check for photographs is actually Flickr. And I don't know if you guys have done this as much, but I'm going to actually share my screen. Now, bear with me. Again, like I said, I've got new software here. Let me show you. So what I'm going to do here. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Let's try this. Here we go. Okay, so here we are over on Flickr. And what I want to show you is I went into Flickr. I actually follow the National Archives in UK. They have a great collection of photos, kind of like Flickr's a digital photo collection type of program. It's hosted by Yahoo, I believe it's owned by Yahoo. So I'm going to take you into the State Archives of North Carolina Flickr page because they have a really fantastic one. And up across here, when you come across these, you'll find photographs, as you can see, throughout the bottom. So they've done a lot of maps recently. And those can be interesting, but what I'm interested in is going to the albums. And under the albums, they have, it's just like little digital photo albums of different topics. But you can find families here, guys. You can find older families. So, for instance, you can find it looks like they've been putting up a lot of the World War II type of photographs of people, individual people. Look at here. We have papers from the Edward R. Hill family. So if I click through on that, look at this. Look at all these family photos from the Edward R. Hill family. Isn't that incredible? You can find more like that down here. You never quite know what they might put up here. Let's see. There was one I really definitely wanted to show you. Okay, the White and Moore family. Okay, this is the White and Moore family out of Wake County of the 19th century. Look at these fabulous photos. You can click on them. Look at there. Isn't that a great photograph? And then you can come down and see usually more description. And we actually have this person is actually identified as India Moore White with her infant son, Bill. So that is a place that you can go and check for other photographs. Now, the interesting thing there, feel free to check things like when you're on Flickr, feel free to check things for such as different archives, state archives. Look at, I did the North Carolina State Archives, but look, you can check and see if they have any county archives. Check university collections might have that up there, and check back frequently because they will actually add more things to their collections. It's a fabulous way to find out what's going on if you can find just individual groups of collections. Now, when we talked with Melissa, she talked about that a lot of the county and state archives have their own photograph collections, and you can talk to the archivist there. And that's exactly what these are, actually. Some of the repositories are taking those collections that they have in-house, and they're putting them online there in the Flickr collections. But absolutely, go back to the state archives or the county archives, local archives, and ask them, what other collections might you have? Maybe they don't have the family perhaps you're looking for, but maybe they have some that they just haven't gotten online yet. Be sure and ask for them. All right, let me check the comments, guys, while I am here. Hey, Elizabeth, we've got from Nightdale. Oh, right down the road. Yay. Ann Carter. Oh, perfect. We got John we're from South Lyon, Michigan. And again, Philip from Burke County. Wonderful. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Okay, so definitely check out Flickr, guys. It's a place you're going to want to see what's there. That's one of my favorite places to kind of go and hang out and look for photographs. Another great place, and then I'm seeing this trend, are yearbook collections. I don't know if you guys have used yearbook collections yet. If you're a North Carolina researcher, you're going to find things such as Digital NC has a lot of high school and college yearbooks online. Other states are doing the same thing. Again, you can actually just Google yearbooks, online yearbooks for whatever county and state you're looking for, and see what the results are that you get. Ancestry has yearbooks. I actually found my dad in his college yearbook on ancestry.com, of all places. You can, I think, Find My Past also has some yearbooks, but check those out. And while we think of yearbooks as being a fairly modern type of book, and I think that's when they've been more popular, yearbooks can go all the way back into the late 1800s. So don't hesitate to check for those, particularly if you have ancestors that you know education was a priority for the family, or you suspect may have been educated at the higher levels. Be sure and check back on those as well. The other place to really check for old family photos would be a church directory. If your ancestor was part of a church or a faith community that created a directory where they have kind of like a yearbook for a church, check those out and see who might be there. Now, the wonderful thing about the church directories is you get a lot of candid photos as well. And oftentimes families worshiped in the same church, so you might get multiple generations in a book there. Now, finding those church directories, that can get a little tough every now and then, that's for sure. But the best places to check are your relatives' bookshelves. If the church is still in existence, call the church, because they'll have them, and check with the church historian, but call the church and see what they might have. Local libraries, guys. You guys hear me talk about using the local library all the time. Check the local library, because they frequently have a local history section, and you might very well find those there. The other place would be like a county museum or a city museum might have those as well as, of course, the local genealogical or historical society. So those are all places to look for those little church directories. They can be quite large. Typically, the ones I'm finding that I'm interested in using tend to be smaller. They're published just for the church family, so they're a little tougher to find. But those are absolutely, you actually have the ability to find those if they still exist. So hang in there and start looking for those. Another one, a couple of folks had chimed in on other places that they find old family photos, and you guys gave me some wonderful examples, and actually that I had not put into the recent blog post, but one of them was passport applications. And I don't know if you guys have used passport applications before or looked at them, but I'm going to take you over and show you those. Hang on, let me make sure I hit the button right. Okay. And so this is a passport application over here on ancestry.com. And this is for Abraham Jacobs, one of my husband's ancestors. And it's out of the state of Massachusetts. Now, obviously, if you're a researcher, a passport application has a ton of information on it. It has birth dates, birthplaces, marriage dates, wife's name, all kinds of things, reasons where they're traveling, why they're traveling, et cetera, et cetera. That's all there. So I don't mean to skip over all of that, but this is the first page. Don't forget to turn the page, okay? Turn the page when you're looking at those passport application. Again, you get all this. You're going to get some really wonderful information up here about age. You're going to get how tall somebody was, their forehead, which I'd never thought to look for, the color of their eyes, the size of their nose, their mouth, their chin, what color their hair was, the complexion, all of that. So you're going to get fabulous information. So if you never see a picture of your ancestor, you at least have some characteristics there. But come on down to the bottom. And what do we have here? This is a picture of Jacob Jacobs, and this is a picture of his wife, Minnie. Absolutely. The only known pictures that I have ever found of them. Actually, that's not correct. Sorry. These were the first pictures I found of them. I did later locate some others through another researcher. But here we have their pictures. So be sure when you look at passport applications and people, you might think you're missing them, be sure and turn the page because these are typically on the back or the second page for that. So absolutely. It's a fabulous place to find them. I always love them to go through those and see if I'm going to find somebody at the end of that. So definitely take care of that. Okie doke. Here we go. So another place that one of the readers shared me, and I thought this was really unusual, and I think I may have seen this once and only once, but she related the story of finding the gravesite of an ancestor in, I believe it was Italy, and on the gravestone marker, there was a picture of the ancestor. Oh my gosh, can you imagine, guys, finding your ancestor's photograph on their gravestone? That would be just cause for the genealogy happy dance right there. But it's definitely an unusual place. I would not have ever thought to look there for a photograph of an ancestor, but I thought that was a really interesting place to look and to be able to find that. I don't know how common that is. My guess is if you've come across a gravestone marker that has a photograph of an ancestor on it, that family was probably well off or more well-to-do, because I'm assuming that would be a more expensive marker for them. So, but it's definitely a place you want to try, and another reason to try and find that grave marker for your ancestor. Unfortunately, my ancestors typically were quite rural and were actually used field stones for markers. So I don't find many of those, that's for sure. All right, guys, let me check over here on the comments here. Oh, and Faye was saying she's having trouble to find the post since 1. So, okay, so you're on here. Great. Oh, I'm so sorry you're having trouble finding it. I'm glad you made it, though. Guys, this actually will be available afterwards, so you can absolutely watch it live or rewatch the broadcast whenever you guys want to at your convenience. Not a problem. We've got Norma from Fort Worth, Texas, and Jane from Maryland, and Diane from Murphy. Yay, more North Carolinians. It's on the Eastern time. Okay, wonderful. So guys, go ahead and start asking. If you have a question and you want to pop it in there, ask. I was interested if anybody has actually used a Flickr page or had looked for photographs using the Flickr collections for different archives and museums. I'm just kind of curious how popular that is as an option for finding photographs. My thought process is it probably isn't that well known for places to look, but I'm never quite sure what people do for that. It's a great place to look. Probably one of my favorite places that is most overlooked are going to be those family resources. And when I say that, I do, again, going back to the beginning, the resources for people who not necessarily immediate family and not even close family relatives, but those more distant relatives. One of the stories I like to share, bear with me if you've heard it before, but I had a photograph of my ancestor and was quite interested in finding out if there were other researchers out there who were researching the family line and if they had photographs of my ancestors in their closet. Because quite frankly, I had a lot of photographs of people I didn't recognize. They were distant relatives. They were distant cousins of my great-grandmother. She grew up in the early 1900s and was very much part of the early adopters of using the Brownie camera when that became popular, and photography became actually affordable for kind of the general masses. So the Brownie camera came along and people started taking more photographs and sharing more photographs. And what I realized in having that collection of my great-grandmother's photographs of all these young people, that some cousins, some just friends, is that if I had them in my closet, did somebody else have photographs of my ancestors in their closet? And well, it turned out they did. So I actually sent the picture off of my great-grandmother to see if I could get any hits to a genealogy society up in Virginia, where it was in a county close to where she grew up. And I actually was then, somebody answered back and said, I'm not related, but I do know somebody who's researching this line. We connected, and he saw the picture of my great-grandmother, and he said, do you know what? He said, that picture, that same picture, is in my mother's photo album. Now, this particular researcher and collateral family member was 3,000 miles away in Alaska, and on the family tree was my third cousin once removed. I think I got that right, but very distant. So my point in telling you that is that a relative or collateral ancestor can be, distance doesn't matter, and even distance on the physical distance and distance on the family tree isn't that important if they have your photograph. Reach out and see what you can do to make those connections, because you never know who they might have. We've since been able to get some other photographs actually identified now that we've made that connection. So it's a great way to do it. Somebody I've never met and living quite a long ways away. All right, I've got some comments coming up. Let's see. Here we go. So Stephanie says, you see the photos occasionally on Flickr when you photograph, the grave marker photos, when you're photographing Find a Grave, and always take a close-up. Oh, that's fabulous to take a close-up of that one to see. I'd love to be able to see more of those. And Faye said, if you find photographs with names, how can you be sure it is your ancestor if you've never seen them before? That's actually a really good question, Faye. I don't have a short answer for that. But probably the first thing, if I'm finding that on somebody's tree, if I'm finding somebody's labeled a photograph with a name or labeling a person, I would probably reach out to that researcher and say, how do you know? But, in a nice way. How do you know? And it could be that they could have known them personally. It could be that the photograph you're seeing online, which you might not be seeing as the back, that had perhaps been labeled. It could have come out of a photo album. So there are lots of ways that somebody may put the one online, but you just don't really know how they know it's the right person. And you're absolutely right on that. Other times when it comes to photographs, you have to go through a process of really identifying the photograph. Could it be them? If you can look at the actual photograph, is it the type of photograph? Is it the right date for that person to have been living? Or is the clothing style, the hairstyle, is that the right date? Is it consistent with who being that right person? That kind of thing. Is it, so that was probably the biggest thing. Then it's usually how I put clues. Is it possible that somebody else in the photograph is identified, so you're able to make those connections that way? Faye, it is hard. Sometimes there are times when you will not know 100% if somebody is correct. But again, if you're finding them online, if you're finding that photograph online, I would reach out to whoever posted that online, particularly if it's in a family tree, and say, hey guys, how do we know that's the right person, or how did you identify that kind of thing? So excellent question. Thank you for asking that. I appreciate that. So yeah, so guys, that's all I have for today. I'm so excited you joined me. I actually made it, haven't coughed too much there. So glad you were here. Feel free to hop over and check out the post in this week, because you can read a little bit more in this week's post. If you didn't get a chance to hear Melissa Barker, the Archives Ladies, recent Facebook Live here on the Facebook page, absolutely, it's still under the video tabs. You can either scroll down the feed or just hop over to the video tabs. Take a listen. She gave us some great advice. We talked a lot of things about. we talked photos, but we talked also about archives and the different things that can be found there. So I think you might enjoy that as well. So feel free to take a listen. It's there. It's not going anywhere. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I appreciate it. All right. I will see you next week. Bye.